Alrighty, y'all, you probably see the timing on how long the video is, and you probably think, yo, this guy must have got crushed. Now, that's not actually the case. We are going to be showing kind of only the important points of the game, the encounters. We will obviously show every fight, but I'm mostly going to show like the last few seconds of the early fights, and then the late fights is literally just going to be 2x speed. And then if I get lucky with anything in particular, of course we will be showing that in the shop. However, other than that, I'm not going to be showing the potion application, as it's kind of min-maxing or whatever. If you would like to see the other kind of edited version of this video, if you think it's a good enough video, please let me know in the comment section below. I will, if there's enough encouragement for that, then I will do that. If not, then I can just always adjust back to what we had in the last 5 episodes or whatever, as that can be done for future episodes. However, I did see a comment and it did make sense to me to at least try a format of a more digestible version. So as you can see, we got the arcane orb around day 6, which is very nice. We got a pretty early Midas diary, and the only problem here is kind of the fact that we have all 0 and 1 star stuff, and it's all scaling. However, we were 7 hearts, now we're 4. Hopefully we can start winning. However, I didn't want to obviously add too much damage, as we did get a early 4 debuffs on our simple curses and a early Midas diary, which allowed us to scale pretty hard. We did get a lost fragment as well on day 8. With the cauldron, we want the cauldron to kind of just replace the spyglass, and then we're going to just go back in and hope that we can be strong enough to win our next few fights. Now, when it comes to these encounters, this is one of the first times in a while I've taken increased luck. However, I would say I will definitely be taking it in the future. Getting 15% luck is quite insane, as I definitely had a couple rounds where it felt like, I probably would have gotten only a fraction of how many lucky shops I got. So it's really good, especially for scaling your candy and stuff. When you don't see my build change very much, then that's why I didn't show the buying phase. So yeah. Getting a lucky shop that gives you all the items you already own is a massive increase to your power, especially around day 10 plus. I would say I left most of this in here because I did not want to necessarily freeze my shop, and I did want to get all the upgrades that I could from this shop before the next round. So I 1-starred basically everything that I could from there, and then I went to the next fight. Now, from this point on, I'm going to be mostly showing 2x on all of the fights for the full fight, because there's a lot of scaling involved, and personally I find it kind of satisfying to see the multicast kind of going permanent. However, some of these fights are closer and some of these fights are not. I wanted to still leave in enough that for the people that enjoyed kind of the longer versions, you would be able to see this. Now, my first option for a upgrade usually is for multicast, especially permanent multicast. I put it on my lost fragment. However, I can see the kind of the reasoning for putting it on the shield. As I'm generating so many potions at this point, it might solve my problem with both healing and shielding for quite a few days. And as you see, that was my second use, so it worked out because I got a crown pretty quickly, probably because of the luck. However, you can kind of interchange that depending on if you feel weak or strong and how many lives you have. Now, I only have 1 life left. Well, some people probably would reset around this point, because getting a high amount of days, even in the 40s, maybe 50s, is very tough when you only have 2 lives basically left, or 2 losses left in the tank. However, I like to see how accurate I can be with the knowledge that I get from the pre-fight kind of stats that it tells you. So I like to push them to the limit, and if they are good enough, you see them, and if they aren't, yeah. So I did get lucky with a royal drop, and as you can see, I used it on the Crown Forge brew to get 3. It's really huge to get that early game. However, once you get the Mimic Rod, 1,000 or more potion belts, then you don't really have to worry about that anymore, as you get a few Crown Forges every single round. 90% of the time, probably. Now, once you get inks is around the time that I would say it's good to start putting the inks on your Solaris and your Moon Veil, or whatever you are going to be dealing damage with eventually. So that is, for example, this is when I would also start scaling a Doom Guide, as it would win way too early beforehand. As soon as you get your Mimic Rod set up, you want to stop using your simple curses. Stuff like that is good to know and good to employ in all of your runs. So yeah, the candy strat, my Moon Veil is never going to cast in any of these fights, so putting the damage candy doesn't matter at all, because your Moon Veil doesn't actually need to attack in order to give the permanent multicast. You just need to have the start of combat scaling. One other thing to note is getting multicast this high is not necessarily needed, obviously, because especially if you're going to use Dark Necklace. However, if you get enough multicast on all your items, it does save a slot in the end, because you don't actually need to use Dark Necklace in the later fights. You just need Dark Orb to make sure you don't get one shot, and then you go from there. Now, around day 17 is when I felt strong enough with the candy and multicast on my Dark Necklaces to be able to employ the Solaris triple Nightquill double Dark Necklace. And I'm not sure that the candy saved me as much as it has in other runs. However, it is really a good cushion, and it makes me more comfortable to be able to do something this greedy, as, you know, I only have 270,000 HP, you know, and I'm not getting any Solaris casts. In between rounds, one thing I am doing is using the cooldown reduction potions on the Solaris. So as you'll see, you know, even though the rounds are pretty similar length, I am getting more and more of the bar down, and when it gets down, it won't actually end the rounds instantly, because I'm not actually adding any damage. I just add that ink potion early game so I can scale it those few rounds where people might not have any shielding or enough to survive the crit. It matters more when you have crit and you're going for like a crit necklace for critical healing, but it's always good to be in the habit of playing properly instead of playing lazily. That's how you create bad habits, and we're not trying to do that around here. But yeah, that's basically the scaling. You're gonna see kind of when I swapped. As you see, this is when I swapped to Curse Shield. You'll see the kind of the break point of when I 3-star the Curse Shield, and other than that, it's just going to be a matter of trying to use pre-fight data and scale greedily while still, you know, trying to beat every opponent without leaving too much room for error. Now, I know I did a lot more yapping in this episode than usual. However, it's, you know, it's 3 times less length of a video, and there's a lot of stuff that I did want to touch on so you can learn for your future runs. If you are enjoying this format, please let me know. It's really important that I know your opinion. Each and every one of you, I read every comment on this channel, and I am trying to improve as time goes by. So if you like the shorter content, kind of more compact, if it's more digestible for you, then that's one thing, then that's very important. And if you like the slower paced but still showing everything that you want to see, then that's important as well, because I'm going to try to do as often uploads as I can. So I do want to know what you guys want to see so I can continue to provide that to you. Now, around this point, I was comfortable to keep just 2, you know, 1 Curse Shield and 1 Solaris, especially because I had only 1 life before being in, you know, kind of sudden death territory, where I would obviously have to completely change the greed strat and try to beat every build from that point forward. So around 10 million multicast is when I added the Curse Shield, and like to 3-star, and I was scaling my Solaris every single round for the rest of the game, because I was always worried about getting one shot by 1,000 cuts. If you don't have the critical healing, it's kind of hard to get a certain amount, but around 10 million multicast, I just would keep it in for the rest of the, or 1 million multicast, 10 million healing is around when I would keep it in the vitality slot for the rest of the game, and just every round hopefully get the 3 autos off, allowing you to scale your max HP and hopefully give you the edge against those 1,000 cuts, because, you know, there's really no other counterplay to the 1,000 cuts to either tying it by killing at the same time, as you saw me do in the previous episode, or just get enough max HP to survive that first 2 hits before your Dark Orb takes effect. If you have been enjoying the Oaken Tower or just the Grind Reporter kind of content as a whole, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video. Comment, let me know what your favorite things, what things you'd want to see in the future, game-wise, strategy-wise, anything. This is going to be a very community-focused channel, and I'm going to just produce the best content I can. However, I would love to experiment with different games, different content strategies, different strategies within games, and I am working on a written Health Forge guide for anyone who saw the video and wanted to kind of have a little insight, because that game is lacking in educational content, but also in a lot of just straight up information, something that I can kind of fill the gap for you. And I did get a top 2 leaderboard run on the global leaderboard, so I do have a screenshot of that, and I will be posting that as part of the educational guide. Similar to if you enjoyed and learned anything from my first ever video on this channel of my day 100 endless run, I will be doing a written guide and an educational version of that for the Hellforge. So if you're enjoying the grind, please subscribe, as well as we are on the road to 1,000 subs, and we are going fast, but we could always go faster. So yeah, if you want to be a part of the journey, the subscription helps me a ton. Now I'm going to say it. I think we did pretty well with our pre-fight data and kind of greeting extra and being able to beat those teams. However, Sad Smurf got me here. And I think Bokari wanted the game to be over because Sad Smurf fought me 2 rounds in a row, beating me instantly with that Cobalt Spear build. So yeah, kind of unfortunate to face the same guy 2 days in a row, especially considering the fact that he beat me 2 days in a row, ending my run. However, this is actually a tie with my first ever video on the channel. 216 quadrillion damage in less than half the time, which is quite impressive and shows the power of the critical shielding perk. So if you want to see me go for a 1 quintillion run, please let me know. Now, what you're seeing here is instead of full scaling, I wanted to see if having a dark orb made the difference or would help me get to the next benchmark instead of the 216 quadrillion. But yeah, you'll see that it... Actually, I don't want to spoil it, so maybe I'll just let it finish and then it'll... So it actually ended up being less shielding overall, but it was the same benchmark of that 216 quadrillion that we had in our first video and in the previous fight. Thank you again so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next grind report.